Good evening. This is Kenneth and Heather with the Advancing Equity Coalition, here to give you our take and analysis and debrief of tonight's school board meeting. We actually had a school board meeting this earlier today, and we decided instead of waiting till tomorrow to record, we wanted to do it tonight so that y'all could get our raw reactions and so that we could get some stuff off of our chest before we went to bed tonight. Um, because I'm holding a lot right now. And so I appreciate y'all giving me the space to share it with you. Heather, how are you doing today?
I think this video or and this meeting tonight and this video that we're talking about is really just a culmination for us from the last few months of trying to hear what we are going to do differently about literacy in our city and really just being honest about the crisis that we're in and the lack of urgency that we feel like we're reacting to with it. I think that's how we're feeling. We're both feeling a little raw. We're a little angry, maybe even just a little emotional because we just well, why don't you talk about what Director Elamy brought forward tonight and why we were excited about it.
Yeah. So Director Alameen offered a amendment to the legislative agenda for Minneapolis Public Schools to include the letters bill. And so if you listen to our shorter video, you already know this, but the letters bill basically is $1 million grant that the state would provide for school districts who wanted to access a very specific professional development on phonemic instruction for early literacy teachers. So, you know, there were a number of things that people brought up tonight why they weren't supporting the amendment, and we can get into that. But we were really excited about it because we have heard time and time again from folks that like teachers leaving teacher prep programs do not know how to teach literacy. Like they do not get exact instruction on that.
Our
And so
district names that as a reason. Our district names that.
we felt like, okay, this was a really good thing to move forward. Director Elamine gets to, share her, shared her story, gets to put on the table an action item that Minneapolis Public Schools might be able to take advantage of. And so, after months and months of talking about and studying a problem, it felt like cool. The board could take a small action today towards, starting to solve it and to really demonstrate to everyone listening in the city that this is something that they care about, beyond just talking about it. And so we thought that that was an opportunity missed tonight because they decided to vote that down on a vote of 7-2. The two board members who did support the amendment were Director Elamine and Director Cerrillo, but our other 7 board members did not support that bill.
One of the things that you were sharing with me earlier was just, can you just talk a little bit about your frustration about like kind of being the person of color in the room that brings something forward and just that sense of like everybody kind of shutting it down?
Yeah, it happens pretty often. I think, if we have, people of color who are listening, you've probably felt this as professionals. You know, you're in this room, you're hearing people talk about all of these different things and, why this is a priority and why it's so important to us. And then you offer like, hey, here's one thing that we can do to, set that up. And or to address the problem that you say is a problem, and to then be, to hear everyone who keeps talking about like, yeah, this is such a big priority for us, to then shut down the one idea that we're putting forward that could, make a difference around the issue that we say we care about, and to just give reason after reason and, do all these things, was just really, it was a little emotional for me, and maybe part of the reason why I'm frustrated as well is because like I've been that person in that room who's listening, who's, and then it just feels like, did I miss something? Is this not the issue we've been talking about for the last 5 months? Is this not the same district who, has less than, around 1 in 4 of their students of color reading at grade level, or third graders reading at grade level. Like, did I miss this, or is this the same conversation that we're having? um and so, yeah, it just felt really, really hard. I can imagine it being like feeling really isolating. And yeah, and you know what, yeah, I get it, fine. People didn't want to support the amendment. But it also just kind of felt like, yeah, let's just throw a bunch of reasons that I didn't really think were great reasons personally. It just kind of felt like you just didn't want to do it. And sometimes, especially as a person of color, it feels like you don't want to do it because I said you don't, because I offered the idea as opposed to another person offering the idea, right? Like, if we had a different director tonight, maybe offer that amendment, maybe you would see a different vote count. But yeah, I don't know. It just felt really, really terrible. And yeah, I do want to say, there are board members that we really respect that voted against this. And as much as I'm like frustrated that that happened, we know that they care about students, are student centered. We know that they care about equity. But yeah, I guess we just disagree on this issue. Um, yeah, but it was just really hard to just see, like, again, this felt like a small step to take towards this, and they didn't do it.
It felt like they said no to something, but it wasn't just that they said no to something, it was also the absence of the fact that we haven't heard our board, our district, our superintendent, our interim of academics tell us anything that we're saying yes to in the last few months, right? So for the last few months, we've been listening for, like, what is the thing? What are we doing differently? What's the plan? Can we hear it? And it's just been like, it's good, it's coming, it's this, it might be this. So I think there was a no, okay, but in the absence of any good yeses, the no was especially hard to hear.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I just think that this is just the culmination of so much. But we wrote down the list of things that we heard around why they shouldn't support this amendment, and I just kind of wanted to go through it because I really don't think it makes sense. So one of the things was that Minneapolis Public Schools did not want to support an item that may not provide any additional um, resources to Minneapolis Public Schools, because it was a statewide grant as opposed to targeted money towards Minneapolis Public Schools, and they may not benefit from it. On the same side or I guess on a different side of the same coin, they were saying that they didn't want to support this bill because it could compete with, the other items on their legislative agenda. So on one hand, they're saying, oh, there's not enough money in this to guarantee that Minneapolis Public Schools would get any of it. On the other hand, it was too much money to worry about comparing it. Like, could it offset some of the money that could go from general ed? Could it offset some of the money that could be coming to special education? Whatever. And so I think that was just frustrating to see, is like, okay, which one is this? Is it one or the other? And so that was really frustrating. Another reason was around, they didn't want to go with a specific vendor. So the way that the bill is set up is it goes through a specific vendor instead of going through, like, Minneapolis usually goes through an RFP process where they get multiple proposals and then they pick the proposal that they think best works for them. Um, and so, yeah, I don't know. I guess it was weird because Director Elamine mentioned how, MDE has, suggested this as a resource already. We've seen it work in other states, in Mississippi, and it's provided positive results. And so I just don't understand why they wouldn't be excited about that. And again, just to support a bill that they may not even get money from, right? Like, they might not get it, and so why are they so worried about it? I just thought the specific vendor thing was really weird, but
And I think for me, like, kind of maybe my last frustration that I'll name tonight is I just really felt like our superintendent, when he's talked about literacy over the last few months, he's really talked about it like there's disagreements and theories, and I've seen the trends. But tonight he said something that really bothered me, which was like all urban districts have this problem. And I just have to say, like, I think there is a sense in which we know this crisis with a head knowledge. We don't think about this crisis with our hearts, and the fact that these are children. And fine, all urban districts have this issue. This is our urban district. This is our city. These are our kids. This is your district, right? And so to me, and maybe that was just a slip, I don't know, but I think it comes at the end of a lot of months of frustration. Like, this is our city. These are our babies. And like, they need to leave these schools reading and writing at grade level.
Well, the thought director Elamine brought up also is like, yeah, we've been presenting on this data for months, but like this is after years of frustration, decades of frustration in some communities, that like we just cannot figure out how to support our students when it comes to literacy. And it's like the fundamental thing that like Minneapolis Public Schools is charged with figuring out for students. And so um yeah, I mean, just to say like, you know, having a specific vendor from a different state that has provided, positive results, we don't want to work with them like necessarily, like that just doesn't make sense to me. Um because, if you're not working with people who have proven results, who are you going to work with to solve some of your biggest issues? Um and so yeah, and they also said that they wanted to focus on their bigger issues and they didn't want to distract from their bigger issues. Is another reason why they didn't support the bill tonight. And again, I just don't understand why their lobbyist, who is meeting with the legislators anyway, at the very end of their meeting can't be like, yeah, we also want to see, the letters bill supported too, right? Like I just don't understand, you know, how much of a distraction is that going to be to all the other things that they're working on. Um, and then
And
finally,
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and then finally they said that they wanted to put it, if they wanted it enough, they could put it in their own budget. So to your point, Heather, around like, okay, you're going to say no to this tonight. Great. To the board members that said like, this is a priority for us, that, I've been talking about this the most of any issue. I want to see what tangible steps you are going to take in order to make sure that this is different. This literacy plan better be out of this world, right? Like, like the scrutiny that you put this one single bill under tonight, I want to see that energy consistently for the rest of these literacy presentations and for that literacy plan especially. Because, I don't think, I think we're so used to being in this position around like nothing's going to work, we can't teach these kids, like whatever. And like that, that cannot be our mode of operations anymore. Like we have to be able to say we're going to do something substantial and different to make sure that students of color can read, because our students just deserve it. And I don't know how else to say this at this point. Like our students just deserve way more than we're giving them. And we can't just say no to everything and not say yes to something, or we can't just like say the way that we're operating it's going to work, because it hasn't worked. Like I don't know what to do if that's how we're going to continue to operate.
And at some point, we need to treat the status of students of color as urgently as if this was a white student crisis.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the urgency around this issue would be different if we were talking about.
We know that to be true because that's our reality. This has been a really heavy night for the two of us. It was a heavy board meeting. We both just like kind of walked away from that just feeling really frustrated and angry. We're kind of giving it to you a little bit rawer than we typically do, but it just really felt like important for us to say like we've been watching this close up. We've been monitoring this. We've followed it, and I just feel for Director Elamine tonight. I feel for the students in our city tonight. I hope some people who watch this, I hope the people, I just hope that we all can come up with something better. That this is not going to cut it.
Yeah. I want to just reiterate, look, there are board members who didn't support this that had good reason. Maybe, we just disagreed, right? Like if they really were worried about it coming at the cost of, some of our other legislative items that they find really important, I guess I understand that. But I think, again, like we need to figure out what we're willing to sacrifice in order to make this, you know, this change come true, right? And we're trying to fight for it all. Um and our students deserve it all, so let's keep fighting for it. But today they actually said no, we're not going to fight for it all. We're going to fight for a certain group of things. And so, like I said, you said no to this tonight. That's fine. I'm very excited to see what you're saying yes to, because it better knock it out of the park in the next 3 years for our students, um, and because our students just deserve this, and we really need to do something differently at this point. So yeah, if for folks who are listening, I hope you took something away from this. Again, yeah, as Heather said, this is a little rawer than it usually is. So I hope all of this made sense. And reach out to your school board members and figure out like what is the plan for literacy. Because I think at this point they owe it to us to spell it out really clearly, and to tell us what they expect to see out of this literacy plan, um, because apparently tonight wasn't it.
All right, we'll be back with more board meeting recaps. We're gonna call it a night for this evening. Thanks
Thank
for
y'all. Thank y'all for listening. Thanks, Heather.
bye.